All right. Welcome, guys, to this elective session. We're really excited once more. I know I have seen some familiar faces from over at the dining hall where I was last time, so it's really cool and really exciting. I know that right now we're living in a kind of a hopeless society. Not a lot of hope. As some of you saw and learned about that in politics, now we're going to get even a little bit different of a view with a theological perspective of hope and why it's so important for us to have hope. And for that, we're going to have Scott Symington. He's going to come up to give you some background and information about him. He is working as a medical physicist with a graduate degree in radiological physics. His teaching is supplemented with hard science experience. He speaks at science and apologetic conferences, churches, and universities in a lot of different ways. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do is, while you're listening, to write down questions you have either for him, about him, on the topic of anything. So because the more interactive you can be, the better off and the more you'll get out of this. So make sure to write down a question. He may not be able to answer all of your questions during the session, but you may have some time later on and he can probably give you some information to email him, stuff like that, if he'd be willing to carry on that conversation. The one thing I do ask is everybody is one seat apart from the next person, just to keep social distancing and to keep your mask on during the whole time. We would really appreciate that. So without further ado, go ahead, Scott.
Thank you. Yeah, any questions you have during the talk, stop me if you want. This is for you, it's not for me. So if it's gonna help you learn more, you're just curious, stop me. No problems. Also, if it's just something you want to know, some tough question you have about beliefs, Christianity, or science, or whatever, write it down, hit me at the end. I'll leave time at the end. Also remind me at the end, remind me to get a picture with a bunch of you afterwards. This is good memory stuff for me. I want a picture of it. So if you can remind me, I'd appreciate that, because I forgot the last session. Okay, so we have COVID, we have riots, we have a crazy election, and reality, this world just never stops throwing stuff at you. There is some challenges with hope. In fact, suicides used to be kind of a my age kind of thing. It's turned into a green disease. It's like environmentally friendly now. Yeah, exactly right. Your age. Suicide rates are going crazy for your age. And what the studies are showing is it's about lack of purpose, lack of hope. Now, I'm like way not supposed where I'm supposed to be. Let me get there. Now, here's the question. Hope is extremely important in life. Oh my goodness, I am so far behind. Yeah, if you want to know whether aliens exist, we can cover that too. That could be one of your questions if you want. And we're not going through all this, don't worry. Okay, I'm done. Any questions? All right. So, hope is extremely important. When you think about hope, what is it? Let's just give some basic definition. What's a basic definition for hope? Do I have no hope for an answer? Okay, let me give you something quick. Hope is just expectation of something good coming your way. You have hope that you're going to get there, something good. Now, the question is, do you have hope, or are you hoping against hope? Meaning you don't really have good hope. Your hope's not really reliable. That's the question, and I want to be real about it. Because honestly, reality doesn't really give a care about what your wants or your hopes or anything are. Reality just is what it is. So this is what we're going to look into today. And we're going to start with someone, her name's Molly, I think Bloom. There's a movie called Molly's Game that was made about what happened in her life. Now this woman, she grew up with a dad who was a psychologist, and he just pushed his kids to the limit of achievement. So she has one brother who was a two-time Olympic skier, and he played for the Steelers and the Eagles. She has a second brother who went to Harvard Medical School and is now a surgeon. And now it's her turn. She's just about to get into Olympics. 2 people ahead of her messed up. She'll probably get in, and then she can maybe even get a medal if she just does really well. She has it all calculated out. Her hopes look pretty good. But there's reality.
He's talking about Kiki Bandy and Shanna Keeper, my 2 toughest competitors who had significant point deductions on their final runs. I can make the Olympic team right now. And if I have 3 perfect runs in Salt Lake, the best runs of my life, I can beat the Austrians and the Swiss and have a realistic shot at the podium. Then law school, and then a startup, a foundation that seeds entrepreneurial women. My father's at the bottom of the slope, telepathically telling me to check my mind.
Check your line.
I check my mind. There's no contract, calm with the body, legs together, good shape, no mind deviation, set up for the D-spin, and stick the landing. Now, 2 things we need to know before the second trick, which will be the 720. The first is that when visibility is bad the way it is now, race officials toss pine boughs in the course, so the skiers have some foreground depth reference. The second is that the tightness of your bindings is determined by what's called a DIN setting. If you're a beginner, your DIN setting is probably a 2 or 3. If you're an experienced weekend skier, it's probably 7 or 8. Mine's 15. My boots are basically welded to my skis, right? So how does this happen? It happened because I hit a pine bough that had become frozen in the snow. And I hit it so precisely that it simply snapped the release of my bindings. Right in that moment, I didn't have time to calculate the odds of that happening because I was about to land pretty hard on my digitally remastered spinal cord, which was being held together by spare parts from the Rector set.
Now, this is a super intelligent, super gifted woman. Her purposes in life is what she had her hopes on. Her purposes were success at the Olympics, success at a career, and then setting up a nonprofit to help women out. All good purposes. And she had it all calculated out. Everything was on her side. But life doesn't care. Life ripped that hope away. She didn't make the Olympics. She had to go through some very serious medical procedures. She ended up trying to make money by starting an illegal gambling ring, got beat up during the process, made a lot of money, and then had it all taken away and got prosecuted for it. And that's the movie. Sorry for wrecking it. Her hope was not reliable. Even though it sounded really reliable, it wasn't. What about yours? Is your hope reliable? Or is it going to end up like this? We can actually answer that question. So here's 2 questions we have to answer to get that answer. Does God exist, and what's the purpose of my life? Or what's the meaning of life? These are what a lot of you are probably thinking right now is, these are 2 of the biggest, most impactful questions in life that all the best minds have written on throughout all of history. I kind of doubt that this guy in 60 minutes is going to be able to answer these 2 big questions and give us a reliable answer. That would be the correct thought if the answer depended on me. Thankfully, it doesn't. The answer depends on the reliability of the source I use. And we're going to look into that. So we're going to answer these 2 questions because they're tied together and they're tied to hope. This is what hope is based on. And then we're going to go to Q&A. Any question that you have, like I said, you can stop me right in the middle and ask me anytime. If you have any other questions, save them for the end. Write them down. I don't want you to forget them. All right. Now, I've said this before, and this is true every time. I'm going to mess with your minds. I don't mean figuratively. I literally am going to cause changes in your brain. Because every single time you learn something new, your brain has to make new electrical chemical pathways and connections. Your brain will literally grow. Now, unless you've heard some of these presentations before, there's going to be stuff in here that's going to be new to you, so your brain will literally grow. But there's a whole bunch of science stuff. Do you need to memorize all this stuff or try to remember it? No, you're going to forget 99.9% of it. I just want you to have 2 things done today. All right, let's keep it simple. Number 1, I want you to get experience with a logical argument for God from science. I don't want you to memorize it. I just want you to see it and kind of let it just kind of wash over you. If you want to use it later because you really like it, it's all on the website. You can just go to the website and get it. The second one, which we're actually going to do first, I want you to write down what is the purpose of life. What are your purposes? And you might have more than one. In fact, I want you to write down 5. All right? On the back of that paper, that handout you got, I want you to write down the 5 most important things in your life or that purposes are based on. Ooh. Anyone else not get one? All right. If anyone else needs one, I got extras here. I'll just stick them here. All right. Now, here's 10 things up here. Now, what you're seeing here is a graph. I made up this graph. I did it as though I was a person who didn't believe in God. So, here are 10 things that some people put as their most important. You can choose these. You can choose different ones if you want. Here's some of them. Career, achievement or being famous, children, a spouse, a good education, being entertained or just being happy, or pleasure. That's a purpose in life. Finances, security, health, how you respond to challenges in life. That will actually impact you pretty seriously. Your spouse or your beliefs about God and relationship with God, or just your beliefs about God. Now, think about this. Here's how you judge if something's important and how important it is to you. The quantity and quality of it impacting your life. Quantity is how often does it impact your life. Quality is how deeply. So for example, should you take time in deciding who your spouse is going to be? Yes. Quantity and quality. This person you're going to live with the majority of your life, hopefully. And quality. If you are with a spouse and it doesn't work, the deepness of the impact is very harsh. Okay? I've experienced it. What about your job? Oh, job's high quantity, 40 years of your life. How deeply? It gets your finances out of things. So that's a big one. I want you to just pick what are your 5 most important things and put it like, give them a 1, 2, 3, like put them in order. Whatever is most important to you is basically your purpose or meaning of life that you have assigned, that you think. And you're going to run your life on these things. At least if you're going to run your life right. Your purpose of life is what you think is important. It's what you focus on. So, what are your top 5? And put a little star next to number 1 because your hope is tied to what your purpose in life is, or you think it is. If your purpose in life is children, that's where your hope is tied. And then if you're like one of my friends who they have miscarriages, they just can't have a kid, that's going to impact their hope very seriously if that was their top purpose. So give you just a little bit longer. Now you might be thinking, you're an old man. I'm too young to be thinking about my purpose in life. I got a long life ahead of me. Shut up, number 1. Don't say that out loud. Number 2, the earlier you get this down, the better, because you are guiding your life based on what you think your purposes are. And if you don't have that set, you're going to go this way and that, you're going to waste part of your life. I have a relative who's the same age as me, who he's not a believer. And he said, yeah, we had to do this thing at work where we had to talk about our meaning of life. So I can't sleep. I haven't slept for 3 weeks. He said, it's so messed me up. I feel like I've wasted my life and I still don't know where I'm at. What is my purpose? What's my meaning? Do I have any? Do I have any value? What is it? Is it because I'm a dad? Is that the only thing? It messed with him. He should have thought about that before. Public schools usually don't have to do this though, so. I never did it. I never thought about this stuff until I got to college and I got challenged. And I was like, oh. All right. Now, so target number one. Did we, okay. Did you, if you wrote, I want you to have 5 down and put a star next to the one you have at top, because that's where your hope is mostly tied to. Overall. Okay, but now we got to think more. Think about this. If someone wants to give me an answer to this, they can, but I just want you to think about it. So let's say you put children as your most important thing, your top purpose. What if you found out you can't have kids? What if you raise your kids up to your age and they're awesome and then they get killed in a car accident? Is your purpose now gone? You have no purpose in life, no meaning, no hope. If children is your purpose, then yeah. There was a guy who, well, I won't finish that story. Okay. What about this one? Happiness. If there was no God, this is mine. This is my number one if there's no God. Even with the God, I go after this one. Happiness. Just want to have a happiest life as I can. But what if I was born in a place where there's ethnic genocide? And I'm on the bad end of that. And my family gets killed. And I don't really have any place to get a job or work. I don't have connection. What if my probability of having more happiness than sadness is like 0.01%? Do I now only have 0.01% of hope? Do these people have less meaning to their life, less purpose and hope? Well, it depends. If children is the most important thing, then yeah. If happiness is the most important thing, then yeah. They have less purpose or meaning than you do if you have more happiness. Maybe. Maybe I'm wrong. I just want you thinking about it. All right, what about this one? What if a person does have it all? A friend of mine, he went on a cruise in the Nordic countries, and he saw this pretty girl, so he's going up, he's talking with her, things are going well, and then the lead singer of Tool came over and stole her away. You can't compete with that. You can't compete with Maynard. That's the lead singer. This guy, he even wrote a song about how he has everything. He's living like a sultan. He feasts like a sultan on this world because he can get anything he wants being a rock star. Now, he said he wasn't happy with it, but what about a person who does have all that stuff? They have the children, they have the great job, they have just happiness all the time, good finances. Do they have greater purpose or meaning than those ones who don't have that stuff? I mean, these are real questions. Are all people created equal? With equal purpose, equal meaning, and equal value? Our founding fathers said that all men are created equal, but they had to throw in there by their creator. They had to throw God in there. If you don't have God in there, are we all equal? Do we have equal opportunity and equal everything? Not even close. What do you think all these riots were about? You grow up in Africa, you do not have the same probability for a lot of the stuff that than if you grew up here. So it depends. It all depends. But just think about that. All right. So now, if there is a God, then your worldview beliefs will have the highest level of quantity and quality of impact on you, both in this life and especially when you're talking eternity. Now, does it mean that children, spouse, education, health aren't important? No. It's just there's so little compared to how important your right relationship with God is, they barely make a mark on the graph. In this case, everyone would be equal. Because if God has a purpose that he gives to all of us, then regardless of our situation on earth, which might not be equal, we can all hit that purpose. So then there is equal opportunity there. We can talk about that. Maybe you don't think there is still. We can talk about it. All right, so targets for today. There's only 2, and the first one you should have done. Got your 5 most important purposes, put a star by the one that's at the top. Now we're going to jump into the argument for God or not, and here's why. Well, yeah, this will expand. Look at this thing. What it is if you can't see it, there's a battery, AA battery. At the one end is taped one end of a fishing line, and the fishing line goes out really long, squiggly fishing line. At the other end of the battery, there's more tape, and there's a small piece of fishing line with some tape at the end. What is this thing's purpose? Now, when I say purpose with a capital P, I mean absolute truth. When I say absolute truth, I mean this is true for all people, places, and times. This thing was created by a person with a purpose. Therefore, that person can tell you what its absolute true purpose was for. Now, can there be other purposes? Can you use this thing for some other things? Sure you can. Can you think of any? What can you use this thing for? A battery with one long end of fishing line and then one short end of fishing line. What could you use that for? Fishing, yeah. If you had a hook to add on to it, yep, because that's like a waiter. Good one. What else? Others? What's that? Yeah, shock them. Yeah, you'd have to add a little bit more electrical stuff to it, and that would be me. But yeah. Others. Okay, some people said things about like making a circle in the sand. You could like spin it around like this. There's a lot of creative things people came up with. Those are all purposes with a little p because that's not what it's made for. How do I know? I can tell you the absolute truth because I'm the one who made that. Well, myself, my friend Chris, and my friend Steve. Yes? So he's basically saying this is used for an analogy, and he's totally right. I am using this for analogy. Very creative. That was excellent. But that is another purpose with a little p, because the main purpose this was for was one thing. And me and my friend Chris and Steve made this. So I'll tell you what the purpose was. Once it got dark, just getting dark, one of us would sneak up to a person's door, we'd put tape on the door, then there'd be the little piece of fishing line, then there'd be a battery, and then the long fishing line we'd take and we'd go and we'd hide behind a car or something across the street. Then we'd pull on it and make it knock. So then the person at the door, you gotta get good at this. You could get it to knock sound like a person's at the door. So they'd come, they'd open the door. Oh, stupid kids, no one here. They close it. I wait a couple minutes. Knock, knock, knock. They opened it up again, now they're mad. I eventually did, I do it like 3 times, maybe 4. I eventually did it right as they were closing the door. I'd make it knock. They were whipping open, all freaked out, looking for the person who's there. And by then I was laughing so hard on the other side of the street, they'd start chasing me because they knew they got played with. That's what that's made for. That is its purpose. Troublemaking genius. Simple too. So we're real proud of that little invention. So that's its purpose. Same thing is true with us. Now everyone is like, oh, does God exist? Do we have a purpose? What? These are so hard, we can't answer that. My question is, well, how do you know? Have you looked into it? When you look into it, it's pretty simple. Let me show you how simple this is. Okay, these 2 questions are tied together. Does God exist and what's our purpose? They're tied. Here's why. So you're there sitting thinking, what's my purpose in life? Well, and does God exist? Well, as far as does God exist, there's only 2 options. This is simple. Either there is no God, or there is a purposeful God. These are the only 2 options. A, there is no God. Non-A, using logic speak, there is a God. Only 2 options. Pretty simple. You only got 2 to choose from. And now watch this. These answer what your purpose to life is. And here's what they are. It's not that hard. If no creator exists, there is no God, it's just nature, then you don't have a purpose with a capital P. That's true for everybody. You're not like that battery invention we did. You have to just come up with whatever your purpose is, and it's just your opinion. If your opinion is to have children, That's your purpose? Okay, fine. If your opinion is to take advantage of those around you so you can have more pleasure in life and rise up, hey, that's your opinion. There's no standard above humanity to judge that, so it's just your opinion against someone else's. You make up your own purposes. But here's the catch. People who believe in naturalism, that there's just nature and chance. They didn't used to admit this before because they know it turns people away, but they're admitting it now. I got it close. Whether it's an atheist biologist, a naturalist philosopher, or whatever, physicist, they're all saying the same thing. I'll show you some of the quotes. If there is no spiritual part of us, it's just our physical bodies and whatnot, then every single atom in your body and your brain is 100% controlled by natural laws. 100%. You don't have any free choices. You think you have emotions and you love someone? No, that's just being forced on you by the way the atoms went in your brain. This is why I like physics. With physics, you can explain everything by initial conditions, how something started out. In this situation, there's a plant here and a person who wants to kick it down. That's how this starts. Then I just use force equals mass times acceleration. And now I can explain this. This same thing is true in every atom in your brain. They have initial conditions, which have been impacted by a lot of things in your life. And then you just have natural laws in physics and chemistry that tell your atoms how to go. You don't have free will. You make no choices, really. They're made for you. That's why when people do crimes, you can't really blame them. It's just you have to put them away so they don't endanger others, but you can't blame them. They're not guilty. This is what you have to believe if there's no spiritual side. If you have a spirit that is a mind that interacts with your brain, well, then you have something that's separate from physical and you don't have to be controlled. If you don't, and you're just your natural body, 100% controlled by natural laws. So that's one option. And we don't all have equal purpose. You just have to make up your own. And you don't control it anyways. On the other hand, if there is a purposeful creator, well, then you have a purpose with a capital P. This creator knows the purpose he created. And you can also have other purposes that you choose in life. Now, I know the one with no God sounds a little bleak. And I know the one with God, it does sound like it might be more hopeful. But here's the thing. If your hope isn't based on reality, then it's delusional and it's just going to hurt you anyways. Even though God might sound better, if it's not true, it's a total waste of your life. Don't waste your time on it if it's not true. Because here's how reality works. Reality doesn't give a care what you want or think, or your opinion or your belief. Reality just is what it is. It's a truck plowing down its little path. Now, if your belief, your hope, your purpose matches with reality, well, then you can get in and go for a ride. It'll carry you where you're expecting to go. If your belief, your purpose, your hope does not match with reality, reality is going to be laying on that horn. It's going to give you warning signs, and you will be realizing, wow, I'm probably not standing on what's true here. And then eventually, at one day, it'll just plow you over. Reality never fails to bring you consequences. If you are not standing on what's true, if your hope is not reliable, you're going to get bombed. So this is serious. So here's what we're going to do right now. Now you know the two options. Either there's no God or there is a God. Now let's look at some evidence. Now, I don't like how some people make the atheist claims not look as strong as they are. What you should do, if Christianity is true and the evidence supports it on a level no other belief system has, you should be very confident and just let the arguments be what they are. I'm going to make this argument, I think, better than the atheist did who used it against me. So I'm going to first give you a reason to think that there is no God, and then we're going to think more and look at other evidence. And then you can just kind of see which one makes more sense to you. All right. So first thing, what that arrow is pointing to, that pale blue dot there, that's us, that's Earth. What happened was the Voyager 1 space probe went through the solar system taking a bunch of sweet pictures that you see in your science books. And when it was about, I don't remember what it was, maybe 6 billion kilometers away, I think it was Carl Sagan who said, turn it around to take a picture of us. So they turned the probe around, shot a picture, that's what it got. Yes? Great question. No. The only thing that's really there is that little dot, which is Earth, which is it's blown up a little bit in the corner. So here's what happened. When they saw this, they call it the pale blue dot. They wrote a book about it and so on. They're basically saying we're not significant. We're just a speck of dust on a speck dust of a planet, existing only a speck of time. We're not important. Look how alone we are. And then some Christians came back and said, because they weren't educated enough on knowing how to answer this, they said, no, look, we're special because look, we're right in that ray of light. Oh, I cringe when I heard some people say that. No, sunlight goes out equally in all directions. That is just a thing of the camera. The camera optics cause that. It makes it look like we're in this beam, but we're not. So that's not solar system or the Milky Way. That's just a beam that from the camera. It just caused it. So really, it should just see all blackness and then one little pale blue dot. That's basically what we get. And it gets worse than that. So these are actual to scale. So that if the sun is that big and Jupiter's that big, the Earth is that third little dot in there. So we are kind of small, even in our own solar system. And it gets worse. That sun that was so big there, that's where we are in the Milky Way galaxy. The Milky Way galaxy is about 100 to 200 billion stars held together by something that has super massive gravity, probably a very massive black hole right in the center. And we are just right there. So there's we are just one part of 100 to 200 billion other stars. Yep. Great question. What do? First of all, we do see other galaxies out there, so we know what types of galaxies there are. Somehow they figured out that we're a spiral type B, and this is a typical thing. And what else did they do? I'm trying to think I think using radio telescopes, they do get the information and are able to map stuff out without actually seeing it, because you're not actually going to see this. It's going to come in as these different radio frequency kind of waves, and then they kind of map it out. I'm not in astronomy though, so I would look that up. Don't go with what I said. But this is a basic picture of what it would look like. 100 to 200 billion other stars. And here's what a lot of atheists don't do, which I would do if I was arguing on their side. This is how it makes us look even smaller. If you go out at night, in a nice night, you go up and you stick out your little finger, the space that's covered up by your fingernail, if you had a super telescope to super enlarge that, this is what you would see. And those aren't stars. Those are each galaxies with 100 to 200 billion other stars and planets. Well, a few of them are stars, only a few of them. Almost all of them are galaxies. This universe is massive. The closest galaxy to us is 2.5 million light years away. And there's billions of them. Why is the universe so vast if we're supposed to be special and have a purpose? Good argument. Atheist who's going around the country, he used this on a debate with me at U of M. This is a good argument for why, hey, I don't think we're special. I don't think there's a God behind it. But I had said to him, I'm really glad you brought this point up, because I can give you an answer. Why is the universe so vast if we're special? Because the universe had to be exactly as vast as it is, or we wouldn't be here debating it. And then I went into the science. So now we're going to look at the evidence for God that ties in with this. Now, here are some quotes from some top-level atheist scientists. Here's what they say about it. They believe this is the way the universe really is. Stephen Hawking, probably the most famous scientist in our lifetime, who died not that long ago. They had him on The Simpsons. They had him on, he's in a wheelchair. They had him on Big Bang Theory. He's been on a bunch of stuff. Like I said, most famous. He wrote the best-selling science book of all time, Brief History of Time. And here's what he said. Though we feel we can choose what we do, our understanding of the molecular basis of biology shows that biological processes are governed by the laws of physics and chemistry, and therefore are as determined as the orbits of planets. You have no free will. You make no choices. Richard Dawkins was the most famous atheist until he kept refusing to debate a Christian. I think wisely he would have been tore up in that debate. So now he's not so favored by the atheists anymore. But here's what he said. He's a biologist, and based on his biology, he said, there is at bottom no design, no purpose, no evil, no good. There's nothing but pointless indifference. The universe couldn't care less about us. We are just machines for propagating DNA. That's your only purpose. Francis Crick, co-discoverer of DNA, the helical structure of DNA, said, your joys, your sorrows, your memories, and your ambitions, your sense of personal identity and your free will are in fact no more than the behavior of a vast assembly of nerve cells and their associated molecules. Same stuff I've been saying. If there's no God, this is true. If you're just your natural body, this is true. So, we have the no God side, and we have one good reason to support it. That the universe is so vast, why would we be special? Now we're going to hit this other side. Okay. So we're going to use science and some logic here. This is called the fine-tuning argument. Some people call it the teleological argument. It just sounds more scientific-y. But really, fine-tuning is what I like because it explains it better. Now, this isn't, if you have logic classes, which they don't really teach so much in public schools anymore, unfortunately, this is basic logic, the way logic works. And so if you ever want to give an evidence for God, this one is a very strong one. It's flipping a lot of scientists as well as other people. I mean, I was talking with a university professor at UCLA of mathematics, and he just said, oh, I can't be a Christian with blind faith. I was like, why do you think you have blind faith? Like, well, because you don't have any reasons, it's just faith. I was like, faith always has reasons, unless it is blind, but who would have blind faith? That's stupid. I said, do you want some reasons? What do you want? Math, science, philosophy, history, what do you want? And so I gave him a version of this. No exaggeration. It didn't take long. He's a mathematician. He goes by numbers. He stands up and he goes, okay, there is a God, but it's not going to impact my life at all. I was like, oh, okay. You just changed your belief system. You just now admit that there's a God, but you don't think whether there's a God who created you with a purpose or not is going to have no impact on you. You see where your emotions are kicking in, right? So in order to get past emotions, we like where we're at. Christians don't want to become non-Christians. We're comfortable where we're at. Non-Christians don't want to be Christians. They like where they're at. They're comfortable there. But comfort isn't the measure of what's going to bring the best to you. Reality is. And this logical argument is a strong one. So here's what we got. You have premises and then a conclusion. Here's how logic arguments work. If you set the argument up right, following this basic form, and if your premises are true, the conclusion is absolutely proven. It is certain, there's no doubt. Not even science can do that. If the two premises are true, the conclusion has to be true. There's no way around it. Now, if the premises are only 80% true, well, then your conclusion is 80% likely true. See how it works? Okay, now, let's look at this. Fine-tuning. I didn't come up with this term. Atheists and agnostic scientists did. What they found was this. When they started studying the universe, starting from the 70s, and then just more and more and more and more until today, they've been finding that there are certain things about the universe that are just right where they're supposed to be. And if they were just a little bit this way or this way, we wouldn't be here. There'd be no life. When they first started finding them, they're like, well, that's weird. There's got to be a reason for this. But then they just kept finding more and more and more and more in so many different areas. If you open up your physics book, you'll see a bunch of what things they call constants. They are things that don't change. Speed of light doesn't change. Gravitational constant doesn't change. You have all these different constants. They are exactly where they need to be for us to be here. You have initial conditions. What I mean by that is when our universe was beginning, there were certain things like how much matter was in the universe that had to be exactly where it's at or we wouldn't be here. How does this happen? Well, there's only three possibilities. Number one, it had to be that way. It couldn't be anything else. That's called physical necessity. This universe just had to have the exact amount of matter. It just had to have the exact constants and so on. That's one option. Second option is chance. It just got lucky. It landed on just where we needed it to be. The third option is purposeful design. There was an intelligence that knew what was needed and fine-tuned it to where it was supposed to be. Or maybe a combination of those. Those are the only options. Premise 2, it is not physical necessity, and it is not chance. They have no chance. Conclusion, the universe is the fine-tuning in the universe is the result of an intelligent, purposeful designer. Now we got to look at the evidence. So what we have to do is, number one, people aren't going to argue this because there's no other options. It's either it had to be that way, it's chance, or there's a purposeful design. There's no other options. If you have it, tell me. Because no one's been able to come up with any. Those are the only options we have. So people don't argue premise 1. It's premise 2. So let's look at premise 2. Could this fine-tuning in the universe be because of physical necessity? I'll tell you right now, scientists say no. So here's kind of what I'm talking about fine-tuning. With a locker, you know, with a locker, you got to get to that first number. So let's say the first number was 21. Do you have to be perfectly on 21? No, you can be just a little bit off, but you need to be pretty close to 21 for it to open or for that number to be accepted. The same thing is with the universe. There were things that just happened at the beginning of the universe. There's balances between forces. There's the constants that are just, they're all right where they're supposed to be, as if they got turned right to where they're supposed to. Because if they turned a little bit this way or that way, we're not here to talk about it. So when scientists started looking at this, they started looking at these examples. Did our universe have to have exactly this much matter, or could it have something different? Of course it could have had something different, they'd say. We do computer simulations all the time on that. Then they looked at the difference between the proton's mass and the electron's mass. Does it have to be exactly as different as it is? No, it could have been different just by chance. It could have been something else. So this one's kind of a hard one to explain, but I'll just tell you this. The things that are fine-tuned just right, there is no natural law forcing them to be that. So physical necessity is not an option. Scientists say it's not an option. I'll even give you a quote from one of them. Paul Davies, he doesn't believe in God, but here's what he said. The physical universe does not have to be the way it is. It could have been otherwise. There are so many different ways our universe could have come about totally differently. It did not have to be exactly like this. So physical necessity, not a real option. So let's go to the next one, chance. Does chance have a chance? Science and math say no. Now, this is the one where people who don't believe in God will hold on to. This is everything else, premise 1, can't get around that. Physical necessity, no, it's not that. They'll say it's chance. But here's the thing about chance. Whenever anyone tries to use chance as an explanation for something, they put themselves on the mathematical microscope and we can analyze if they know what they're talking about or not. So let's do that. Okay, here's the answer. Why is the universe so vast? With, hundreds of billions of other stars and planets, all that matter and mass. Why is it that big if we're special? Here's the answer. Because it had to be exactly that vast. Here's the illustration. I did the calculation myself. I couldn't believe it when I first saw it. If by chance someone or whatever caused the universe, because our universe came into existence out of nothing, out of was not in existence before. All of nature came into existence from something beyond nature. When it came into existence, if by chance, I believe in chance, someone happened to flip an extra dime and added an extra dime to all the mass that's in the whole universe, then the universe would have crushed back in on itself and turned it into a bunch of super black holes and no life. Because at the beginning of the universe, and even today, but at the beginning, it was even crazier balance. You have two forces acting that are unbelievable. gravity trying to crush everything together, and an expansion force trying to fling it all apart. And when you think about gravity, okay, I'm going to say something, and at first it's going to turn your stomach, but give me a second, I'll keep going from that. All of the most attractive women in the world are attracted to me. Yeah. Of course, so are all the guys, all the chairs, all the cars. Anything that has matter or mass in it has a gravitational force of attraction between me and it. I can calculate it. I can literally calculate the gravity between me and this table right now. Now, both of us, our matter isn't a lot, so we don't even feel it. However, between me and the Earth is a big enough mass that, see, gravity depends on how much mass there is. The more mass, the more gravity. I can calculate this gravity. Here it is. When I jump up, it pulls me down because the Earth is big, so it has a certain amount of gravity pull on me, which is my weight. If I was on the moon, I could jump like Jordan. If I was on a neutron star, there is so much mass on a neutron star. If I was standing on the neutron star, I would weigh 23 million pounds, I think it is, and it would crush me to a little puddle. Now, think if you had all the mass of the universe all by each other right when you had the beginning of the universe. That gravity would have been beyond any imagination. But at the same, and trying to crush everything into a bunch of black holes. But at the same time, you had this expansion force that's within the fabric of space-time, they call it. It's trying to stretch it apart. So if by chance, you want to say chance did this? Okay. If by chance there was an extra dime's worth of mass, we'd have a bunch of black holes we wouldn't be talking about. And why is the universe so vast? If someone took less than a dime's mass out of the entire universe's mass put together, think about it. Picture all the mass of the universe, and someone took out less than a dime's worth. Everything would have got flung apart, and we just have hydrogen gas. They have a big hot air balloon universe and no life. The universe somehow landed on the exact vastness it needed. Is it chance? Well, we can check it out with math. I actually do have $40, 220. So if I were to say, and I'm not going to do the first one, I'll do the second one. If I were to say, anyone wants to take a guess between 1 and 100, if you get the number right, I'll give you $40. If you get it wrong, I'll punch you. Now, some of you will take it because you're like, yeah, you look old. You don't look like you can punch that hard. I'll take that bet. And since I don't want to get sued, we'll go to the second one. Although I can get sued for this one too. I got a number that I wrote down that you remember. In fact, I'll write it down again. I'll do a new one. I'm going to write down a number between 1 and 1,000. Let's say I give you this opportunity. Anyone want to come up here? If you guess my number right between 1 and 1,000, I'll give you the $40. If you get it wrong, I take your cell phone, I get to smash it in front of everyone. You don't have a phone? Smart. Why would you do it? Okay, yeah. So we got two smart people out to get their money. And I don't want to get sued, so I won't do it. However, I'll still do this with you. Now, most of you wouldn't do it because $40, and the main reason you wouldn't is because of the odds. I mean, 1 in 1,000, those are horrible odds. All right. But we're betting our life on odds too, so we're going to get to that in a minute. But just for fun, let's just see if we can do it. Now, 1 out of 1,000, if you got about 40 people here, there's what, 4% chance that you might get this? I did have one punk actually take the 40 from me because he guessed the exact right number. Let's see if someone can do it here. Write down on your paper between 1 and 1,000. I'm going to write something down myself. If you get it right, you get the 40. And then we'll talk about probabilities. Once you wrote your number down, lift up your paper so I can see it, or Drew can see it. And if any of you get it, you get the too old. My eyes are. Boy, there's some people. Unfortunately, I was close to doing that one. Anyone get it? What's the number on my? What number did I write down?
410.
Okay. Now, there was only a 4% chance someone was going to get it, and even though I had only a 2% chance, but that's 1 out of 1,000. Now, unfortunately, my stupid self put the wrong scientific notation up here. But here's how if you remember scientific notation, if you have a 1 in 100 chance, that's 1 in 10 to the second power because there's the 2 zeros after 10 times 10. If it's 1 in 1,000, it should be 1 in 10 to the third power. Now, what if I made a bet? I'll give you $1 million if I can keep you out of an airplane at 10,000 feet without a parachute and do this. That's $1 million.
The airplane doesn't have to be flying.
Good question. I'm more demented than that. I want to see you go without a parachute. So no, it would be full. This actually, unfortunately, this has happened enough where parachutes didn't work. We have statistics. You have a 1 in 10 million chance of falling out of an airplane, I thought it was 10,000 feet, without a parachute and surviving. And that's a 1 in 10 to the 7th chance. Yes.
Has anyone survived it? And if so, were they paralyzed for the rest of their life?
Good question. Both. We've had some survive it and they were paralyzed. There was others who survived and weren't hardly hurt.
Wow.
I know.
That's not.
I tell you, it's yeah. I don't know. Great question. I don't know. You know, God, physical reasons, just chance. I don't know. What I do know is you got about a 1 in 10 million shot of surviving. Now, now think about this. That's 1 in 10 to the 7th power. People, yeah.
You know who Mark Rover is?
Wait, who?
Mark Rover.
Sounds familiar.
He has a whole 20-minute video on how to survive falling from a plane.
Oh, no way. Oh, I gotta check that out. What's his name, Mark?
Mark Rover.
I gotta check that out.
He's cool. I like him.
Even after watching that show, I'm not jumping out of an airplane without a parachute. I jumped out of an airplane with a parachute. It was awesome. I totally recommend it. I do not recommend it otherwise. 1 in 10 million shot, I'm not gonna base it. Those odds are not good for me, and that's only 10 to the 7th. Think about this now. If you're not gonna make a bet on 1 in 10 million, 1 in 10 to the 7th, if you're betting there's no God behind the universe, you're betting against 1 in 10 to the 60th power that somehow chance got the exact vastness of the universe right. That's a very bad bet. If you want to base your life that there is no God, you're going against math and science. Now, if this were the only example, honestly, even I would be waiting for more evidence because maybe you could, I don't know how you'd find some explanation for it, but one example wouldn't do it for me. I got hundreds. I just told you something about the beginning of the universe. This thing had to be right at the very beginning of the universe. It had to be perfect, and it was as big as the whole universe itself. Now we're gonna make it smaller. What about Earth? Well, scientists, the more they started finding fine-tuning in the universe, the more they look for it. One of the best evidences that your theory or belief is on the right path is if you can predict future explanations, future findings. Fine-tuning does that. Scientists said, why does the Earth have a moon? And as big as that, we're the 3rd planet from the sun. Where we're at, we should not have a moon like ours. That's crazy large. That makes no sense. The scientists involved literally said, I bet there's a reason that allows life on Earth because of it. Let's look into that. And sure enough, they found some stuff. We're not supposed to have a moon like we have. That doesn't actually happen. Something had to happen to get it, and thank goodness it did. Here's what the Earth would be like without our moon. It would have an atmosphere like Venus, which is poison. Poison atmosphere, that's not good. It would, you know how we're on an axis. If you go from South Pole to North Pole, it's kind of tilted at like around 23 degrees, and it wobbles a little bit. If we didn't have the moon, it would be like this. Because Mars does that. I'll show you Mars's. I got a graph of it. Also, the moon slows us down. The moon has gravity and it slows our spinning. The rotation, the spinning that we do, it would be going so fast, hurricane winds would be like child's play. But the moon slowed us down. Two other things happened. What is plate tectonics? What does that do? Yes? Yeah, it does earthquakes and tsunamis. And why does that happen? Yeah, so we got these continental plates, and plate tectonics means these plates are actually moving and they're running into each other and they're like making mountains and stuff. If it weren't for plate tectonics, after a certain amount of time, rain and wind would erode all our land into the ocean and we would not have any land. So plate tectonics is what's keeping us having land. But there was no plate tectonics until something happened. A couple other things too. You need a whole bunch of radioactive elements in the center of our Earth, which we didn't have. Also, there's something else. So anyways, here's what Mars looks like with its axis flipping all over the place. Look at the Earth now. Nice and stable, just what we like. Now, so they did a computer simulation. How did we get this moon? Well, what they said is something about the size of Mars slammed into us, like as Earth was like right in its beginning. And what happened was, that's kind of the simulation of it. It gave us all the metal and radioactive stuff it had in its center. It gave it to our core. We had some, we didn't have enough to have plate tectonics or magnetosphere. Why is that important? Well, space is filled with radiation. SpaceX makes everything look easy. SpaceX and NASA are so fun to watch, make things look easy. It's not that easy. They're just doing little stuff. You try really flying through space, there's radiation all over the place. So if you want to take a trip to Mars, you want to be one of those first ones, you can go, you get some radiation. And you can't hang out at Mars. Mars is covered with radiation. You have to go live in a bunker underground. Otherwise, you'll get cancer. Why? Mars doesn't have what we have. Because of the moon giving us its metal and its radioactive metal. What you see there is you can't really see it. So the Earth's at the center of all those blue lines. What that blue lines is magnetosphere. Because we got enough metal in our core, it creates this magnetic force field. And what it does is all those charged particles. See, I work at a cancer center. We treat patients with charged particles. That's how you kill cancer. You can kill other stuff with it. So that's why I have to be very careful to make sure that it's just going right where we want and not to any of our staff or the patient's other good organs. The sun is picking out radiation. It would be bathing us in it right now. But we have two shields that are just the Earth created because of this. So one of them is that magnetosphere. What you're seeing there is all those charged particles, it's getting blocked by it. But now, again, it's hard to see in that picture, but the Earth is where the lines kind of curve in. Some charged particles do get to go in there, but where is it? It's where there's at least life, at the North and South Pole. And we have a second layer of shield, the atmosphere, that eats up what's left. And it does it so beautifully, because not only does it protect us, it creates the northern lights. That's what those are. Those are solar particles coming to try to kill us that got deflected by the first shield and then ate up by our atmosphere, the second shield, which turns them into beautiful lights. This shouldn't happen, but it happened for us. Oh, let's go even smaller now. About everything just right. Let's go right down to an atom. So an atom is made up of subatomic particles. You have protons and neutrons in the nucleus, and you have electrons kind of in a probability cloud around it. Now, for some reason, the proton just happens to be 1,836 times bigger or more massive than the electron. And here's what Stephen Hawking, non-believer, in fact, he speaks out against Christianity. Well, he did. He passed away. He knows the answer now. And it's, I know people who actually worked with him. He did go to church. Wife was Catholic, but he didn't really let discussions with God go very far. Once he started giving evidence, discussion was over. And like I said, he's like the most famous scientist of our time. So he had, he didn't want to hear it. He wasn't going to hear it. And that's true for all of us. We're going to make our own choices and you're accountable to them, but there's going to be an answer. So you got to make sure you're making it right. And look what he even said about this. He said, the proton being just that exact size different from the electron is one of those constants in nature. He said, the remarkable fact is that the values of these numbers seems to have been very finely adjusted to make possible the development of life. Does chance do fine adjusting to hit just the right mark on many, 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 many different things? Not in my experience. Hawking continues and said, hey, we can keep looking at stuff. Those electrons, they also have a negative charge. And had they been only slightly different, stars would either just explode or they wouldn't even light up to begin with. Again, not good for us. We can go even smaller. How many of you had to memorize this wretched thing? Yeah, memorization was bigger too when I was growing up, so they made us memorize this periodic table, which was a pain. But, so those protons we were talking about and neutrons, they're made up of even smaller things called quarks. A proton is made up of 2 up quarks and a down quark, and the neutron's made up of 2 down quarks and an up quark. Interesting names, why are they called that? I can't tell you. Here's the interesting thing though. If you see how there's 2 up quarks and a down quark and there's like a little force between them. That's what's holding them together. It's called the strong nuclear force. If that strong nuclear force was 5% difference, here's what the periodic table would look like. Just hydrogen. No life. If it was just 2% stronger, the only elements we have are radioactive. Not good for us. So we talked about something as big as the universe itself, right from the beginning, that had to be perfect. We talked about things about our planet. We talked about atoms. We talked about quarks. You can look anywhere in the universe and find things that science has written articles about, peer-reviewed articles, not Christians, that said, literally, oh my God, how did this get perfect? I could go over these examples, or these, or these, or these, or these, or these, all those. All this stuff had to be, picture them all as little dials that had to be exactly right, and somehow they're all right. All those locker combinations to open up that locker for life. One more time, I want to talk about probability to see what you're betting against. If you think chance did this. I want to make sure I don't go over time. What time is this one at?
5:30. So it'll probably wrap up a little bit before that.
Okay. So here's the odds of you surviving a fall from 10,000 feet without a parachute. It's 1 in 10 to the 7th power. 1 in 10 million shots. Let's talk about lottery. So Mega Million lottery in Michigan went up to something like $150 million. So I bought one because I wanted to show people odds. I bought it, I looked at it, and then I calculated what are my odds of winning if I buy one ticket. So let's say this happens. Someone buys one ticket and they win the Mega Millions lottery, they get $150 million. Or actually way less than that once they take taxes and everything out. Is that amazing? Is that unbelievable? No, someone's gonna win eventually. Whatever. But now think about this. Get this in your head. This is a good example of this because this is what we see in the universe. So the guy buys one ticket, he wins. Then this person, they wait till the lottery gets up to over 100 million again, they buy one ticket and they win again. Hey, I'm good at this. The next time the Mega Million gets up there, they buy one ticket and win again. They do that 6 times in a row. What are you thinking? Are any of you are thinking, wow, how lucky, lucky guy? What are you thinking? Cheating? That's purposeful design behind the scenes.
God really wanted him to be rich.
Oh man. Shoot. I tell you, that's a funny one. That's a good answer. I would, while I think the evidence from this will point to there's a God, you'd have to give me evidence why God would do this for this person.
I don't know.
Others.
Maybe he's meant to like save a bunch of lives with that money.
Yeah, you'd have to be real creative to come up with that one, but it's an interesting thought experiment. So, someone wins 6 times. None of you are thinking this is chance. Because why? The odds are 1 in 10 to the 48th power. It's just not going to happen. Well, look at these odds we're dealing with. To get the matter of the universe just right, the universe would have to win a lottery that's vastly tougher than that. If you believe that there must be purpose acting behind a 6 times lottery winner who only beat the odds of 1 in 10 to 48, why do you think chance can do 1 in 10 to the 60th? And that's only one thing. So I usually use evidence from non-Christians because I don't want people to think I'm biased. But there is one thing I use from a Christian, Hugh Ross. He's an astronomer. What he did was he took all these fine-tuning, he went to universities across the world, and to the ones that disagree with us especially, like those professors, and he said, disagree with me. What do you agree with or not? And what he said, you know, I got it all listed on my website. You can check and see what these are. These are all, what the scientific community says basically is, okay, there is fine-tuning in the universe. And they even agree that the odds are something like that. They said, well, we maybe take 24 zeros off of it. Oh, so instead of 10 to the 1024th power, it's 10 to the 1000 power. That makes no difference at all. There is no way chance has a chance. Here's what the scientists are actually saying. You're going to see this quote later, too. I took this from a summary video that Reasonable Faith did. He said, Fred Hoyle, atheist, says, a common sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a superintellect is monkeying with physics, and there are no blind forces worth speaking about in nature. The number of one calculates on the facts seems so overwhelming to put this conclusion almost beyond question. Arnold Penzias, Nobel laureate, who was involved in the whole beginning of the universe studies, he said, astronomy leads us to a unique event, a universe that was created out of nothing, one with the very delicate balance needed to provide exactly the right conditions required to permit life, and one which has an underlying, one might say, supernatural plan. You don't make all these fine-tuning things happen if you're not planning. Chance has no chance. And trends. Trends, when you see how something is trending over time, those are great indicators because those don't care about your opinions or your emotions. They just tell you how things are happening. Here's the trend. When we first started finding fine-tuning evidence, it has just grown incredibly from there. Every month, scientists write about, on average, write a new article saying a new fine-tuning they found, which makes it 1 million times less likely that chance has a chance. All those dials have to be just right. Okay, so here's the fine-tuning argument. I only wanted you to have some experience with it. It's on the website if you want it, thoughtfulbeliefs.org. It's not completed yet, but you can still have this will be up there somewhere. So, the fine-tuning of the universe. It's accepted. Scientists accept it. Yeah, it's fine-tuned. It's either from necessity, chance, or purposeful design. Scientists have said it's not from necessity, and now you can see chance has no chance. So the conclusion, it's a purposeful design. Now there is one way out. How many have heard of multiple universes or the multiverse? Oh yeah, Marvel has had so much sweet fun with that. I love stories and stuff about the multiverse. It's so interesting. Here's science fiction though. Now, it depends what kind of multiverse you're talking about. There's 4 levels. Level 1 isn't really a multiple universe. It's just our universe is bigger than what we can see, and I would agree with that totally. There's other ones like bubble universes and so on. The only way, and scientists have said this, the people involved, like Max Tegmark, he's the one who gave the 4 levels of the multiverse. Tegmark and others, they're saying the same thing. Okay, if you don't, they literally, here's the exact words of one of them. If you don't want God, you better have a multiverse. And not just any multiverse, you have to have a level like 4, the infinite type multiverse. And let me just show you why common sense this makes no sense. All right, what you see here, you might not be able to see it well, is, for example, in this picture right here, you have a guy sitting next to a girl pretty close, probably boyfriend, girlfriend, got a little dog curled up here, and then it's in an apartment or something. In this picture, it's almost the same, except the girl has her legs in a different position, and the dog's a bit bigger. In this picture up there, it's not a dog, it's a culprit. In this picture over here, it's only the guy, the girl's not there. In a picture right there, the guy's neck is longer than before. If you want to believe that there's not a purposeful God behind the universe, what you have to believe is this, that every possible thing that could ever happen actually is happening out there somewhere. I am not exaggerating this. I can make it even sound crazier, but I'll just give you one simple example. If the multiverse is true that you need to avoid God, then literally, there is a world out there that is the exact same as this one, except you're wearing a blue sweater. And that's an equally universe out there somewhere. There's another one out there somewhere where we all are blue. There's a universe out there somewhere where the president is actually Elvis and we're living in a country called China, but everything else is the same. I am not exaggerating. You have to literally believe anything physically possible. There's a universe out there where when it gets dark enough in the sky, when you look up, it says, I created this, God. And it's very clear, it's with stars. That has to exist out there somewhere.
So it would be the equivalent of there's a universe out there where the Marvel universe is true and our universe is a fictional series. So it's kind of reverse.
Anything that's physically possible, so then possibly. Yeah, I think that would be. In fact, there is a universe where the Matrix is true. For sure. If this multiple universe, if there's this infinite type. Here's the problem though. Yeah.
So in that multiple universe, anything that is possible, wouldn't God be still possible? So it would be just
It is possible. So it doesn't really answer, it doesn't totally let them escape. Here's another reason why it doesn't let them escape. If you have a universe generator that actually creates all these universes, you have to have it fine-tuned to be able to test all the different types of universes so you actually get one that somehow gets everything right. Not to mention, there is zero scientific evidence for this. You have to step outside of science into philosophy, and pretty bad philosophy, to do this. Because you violate 2 laws of logic, or 2 fallacies. This is an ad hoc fallacy and an ad futurist fallacy. I won't go into those. This is not, to believe in this, you have to be irrational. You're going against reasons if you want to believe in this. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying it like it is. And if I was talking to someone who believed in this, I wouldn't say it as bluntly as I just did to you, because I'm trying to not win an argument, I'm trying to win a soul. So I care about them. I wouldn't treat them bad. But I would still say this is ridiculous. Because it is. All right, how much time we got left? Half hour? All right, yeah. Here's a summary video. All right, here's a summary of it.
From galaxies and stars, down to atoms and subatomic particles, the very structure of our universe is determined by these numbers. These are the fundamental constants and quantities of the universe. Scientists have come to the shocking realization that each of these numbers has been carefully done to an astonishingly precise value, a value that falls within an exceedingly narrow, life-permitting range. If any one of these numbers were altered by even a hair's breadth, no physical, interactive life of any kind could exist anywhere. There'd be no stars, no life, no planets, no chemistry. Consider gravity, for example. The force of gravity is determined by the gravitational constant. If this constant varied by just 1 in 10 to the 60th parts, none of us would exist. To understand how exceedingly narrow this life-permitting range is, imagine a dial divided into 10 to the 60th increments. To get a handle on how many tiny points on the dial this is, compare it to the number of cells in your body, or the number of seconds that have ticked by since time began. If the gravitational constant had been out of tune by just one of these infinitesimally small increments, the universe would either have expanded and thinned out so rapidly that no stars would form and life couldn't exist, or it would have collapsed back on itself with the same result: no stars, no planets, and no life. Or consider the expansion rate of the universe. This is driven by the cosmological constant. A change in its value by a mere 1 part in 10 to the 120th parts would cause the universe to expand too rapidly or too slowly. In either case, the universe would again be life prohibitive. Or another example of fine-tuning. If the mass and energy of the early universe were not evenly distributed to an incomprehensible precision of 1 part in 10 to the 10 to the 123rd, the universe would be hostile to life of any kind. The fact is, our universe permits physical, interactive life only because these, and many other numbers, have been independently and exquisitely balanced on a razor's edge. Wherever physicists look, they see examples of fine-tuning. The remarkable fact is that the values of these numbers seem to have been very finely adjusted to make possible the development of life. If anyone claims not to be surprised by the special features that the universe has, he's hiding his head in the sand. These special features are surprising and unlikely. What is the best explanation for this astounding phenomenon? There are 3 live options. The fine-tuning of the universe is due to either physical necessity, chance, or design. Which of these options is the most plausible? According to this alternative, the universe must be life permitting. The precise values of these constants and quantities could not be otherwise. But is this plausible? Is a life prohibiting universe impossible? Far from it. It's not only possible, it's far more likely than a life permitting universe. The constants and quantities are not determined by the laws of nature. There's no reason or evidence to suggest that fine-tuning is necessary. How about chance? Did we just get really, 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 really lucky? No. The probabilities involved are so ridiculously remote as to put the fine-tuning well beyond the reach of chance. So, in an effort to keep this option alive, some have gone beyond empirical science and opted for a more speculative approach, known as the multiverse. They imagine a universe generator that cranks out such a vast number of universes that, odds are, life-permitting universes will eventually pop out. However, there's no scientific evidence for the existence of this multiverse. It cannot be detected, observed, measured, or proved. And the universe generator itself would require an enormous amount of fine-tuning. Furthermore,
So, first goal was we wanted you to get your purposes down. See what your hope's tied to. Second thing is we got to see if God exists or not. So we went through just one of the evidences for God from science. And I just wanted you to get some experience with it. Don't God know it? It'll be on the website if you want it. And it's in a lot of places, actually. I want you to pick your favorite example of. What was the one that stuck out to you the most of the examples I gave? I gave, like, one of them was the perfect amount of matter at the beginning of the universe. It had to be less than a dime's difference. Another one is the proton to electron mass had to be perfect. Another one was that nuclear force in the quarks, otherwise we'd only have one element, hydrogen. Another one was the moon, just giving the Earth what it needed. I got hundreds of different ones. I want to know which one might have stuck out for you, because I'll get rid of the ones that don't or that didn't make sense, and I'll replace it. So anyone Any comments out? Is there anyone that stuck out that you liked or one you didn't like that didn't make a lot of sense so I can get rid of it? Yes. Oh, with the dime? Good. Good. That one's a little hard to explain, but if you like it, that makes me feel good. Because I like that one myself. Yeah, that one caught me by surprise too when I first saw it.
All of it was interesting.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, to me too. I mean, this is amazing stuff. They can't teach it in the public school. I taught public school. You can't teach this in public school. You got to keep that because they don't want to indoctrinate. But when you explain everything and you keep God out of it, you're indoctrinating naturalism. So that's still a problem. And you miss this cool stuff you should be able to talk about. Which one? Oh, the quark one. And that one's a new one too. So good. Thank you guys. I like the input. Yeah, one more. Yeah, you like the moon one too? Okay, the moon even got a couple votes then. All right. Next thing. Here's a summary. So basically, for something to have absolute purpose, it depends on the purpose of what created it. All right. So now, there's only two options. Either there is no God or there is. And the evidence here, and there's so much more we can go into, the evidence is that's not an option. If you think no God exists, I want to hear what evidence you have. I've heard nothing that reaches the level that supports Christianity. In fact, if you look at every belief system that I've looked at, atheism, agnosticism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Mormon, all of them, none of them reach the level of a comprehensive case of support the Bible does, or the biblical model. And that makes sense because there's something called the law of contradiction. When different things contradict each other, only one can be right, and reality will only support one on a level the others can't match. So if there is a God, well, then we have an ultimate purpose that's true for everybody. And you have the free will to come up with some more of your own. If you are basing your life that there is no God, you have a hope against hope. Because you're not really holding on, you're not doing it with reasons. Reasons support the other side. Now think about this. So in the end, here's the answer. Either God does exist or does. The evidence here, and we can, there's a whole comprehensive case of it, shows that there is a God. If there is a God, you'll have an ultimate purpose, and then other ones that you can connect to it that you choose. And your hope is tied to that purpose. All right, so, well, that was a mistake. What is God's purpose for us? If that's our purpose with a capital P, it's kind of important to know and to have that as your little star that you're basing your hope on.
To tell the people about God.
One of them is telling other people about God. And why do you do that? Because you're caring for them. Yep.
More specifically, when you said getting as many people to heaven as possible.
Yeah, God purposed for us to have eternal relationship with God. And so that, yeah. And what did Jesus say are the top two commandments? Yeah, perfect answer. Love God, and then you love your neighbor. And this is where the getting others into heaven comes in. If you love your neighbor, there's a truck coming down. It's reality. It's going to run them down and separate them from God if they don't make the right choice in that area. So we do have an ultimate purpose. Relationship with God and loving others, helping them have that relationship. All of us have that purpose equally. And we have equal opportunity to, now, God says you get judged by what you've done, but with what you've been given. So those of us who've accepted God, we're still getting judged. Your new responsibilities in heaven are going to depend on what you've done with what you've been given. We all have equal opportunity there. My mom thinks, oh, she can't speak like you. Like she was telling me how, oh, it's so nice how you go speaking around different places and so on. I was like, well, Mom, yeah, that's my area where I got gifted and I'm using it. I said, honestly, though, more people remember you than me. All my friends talk about my mom. The friends I've had since elementary school still talk about her. She's the most loving, serving of others person that there is. So we all have our little gifts, whatever they are. Question? No. Nope. Okay. So, last thing. So, how do we get this hope then that's more reliable than all the others? Like literally, if you lost family, friends, career, your health, you could have, this life could tear you apart, and it does to some people. You can still have hope that is more reliable than anyone else if it's tied to the right thing. Now, how do you get this hope? It's easy, not easy. What do I mean by that? This is how easy it is. God already did the steps for us. He knew we would make mistakes that would separate us from him. If you are not holy, you will be separated from a holy God. That's his nature. That's what hell is. If you're not holy, you're going to get separated from heaven and God. How do you fix that situation? We can't. But it's easy to, because God took care of it himself on the cross. All you have to do, doesn't matter how you say it, but basically, you just let God know, I want that forgiveness. I accept what Jesus, the gift he gave, I want that. That's how easy it is. Here's where the not easy part comes in. Now you got to trust. You got to trust him. This world's going to come at you and mess you up. Even though you don't have to do anything for salvation except accept him, you still got to trust him. And that's hard when life's coming at you. But again, we have a hope that is more reliable than any others, because here's what it depends on. It depends on what's supporting that hope. If your hope has all the reasons saying you can trust it, it fits reality, you're good, that's a secure hope. If you're hoping on something that goes against reality, reality's going to run you down. Oh, okay. So I'm going to end it right here with the hope, purpose, all depending on whether God exists or not. At this point, any questions you have about what we talked about or other things you want to know? For example, things tied to this include, what about evolution? Do aliens exist? Things like that. Is there anything about the talk or about this other stuff? Yeah.
You think about it.
Yeah.
I was wondering, like, so how does it affect us, if there is a dime in some of the galaxy over that?
Great question. Because none of that would have got to this point if there was a dime difference at the beginning. So this is when the universe first popped into existence. When the universe was first created, it had massive gravity trying to yank it together, pull it together, and massive expansion force trying to fling it apart. Because good questions. They've calculated how much mass is in the universe. And when you go back in time, what you see is, like right now, if you use a telescope and you look at a radio telescope, look at any star, the light is what they call redshifted. Here's what it means. You know when a car drives by you, it goes, that's a Doppler effect. Sound waves are getting compressed as they come towards you, so they sound different and they get spread out going away. Same thing with light. If you look in any direction in space, everything is going away from us. It's all redshifted. What that means is, if you go backwards in time, there was a time where all matter was all together, right crunched in there. And so they can calculate the gravity force would be this, unbelievable. But then you had to have an expansion force to match it. How good does the match have to be? 1 in 10 to the 60. And that's where they.
And what do you think of what God has just created it as is?
Could have. But did he? Don't know. You can look at the Bible for answers, and you can look at the book of nature. Because nature, God made both. They're going to agree with each other where it's right. Yes.
So this is kind of like a random thing, but so as the population rises, wouldn't that change the Earth's mass and how much it's on it? So could that technically mess with the galaxy and pull things closer or push things further apart?
That is such creative thinking. Yeah, I like that. Technically, yes, it would have an impact. But even the amount of people compared to the mass of the Earth and then the mass of the sun, which is really holding us in place, it's not enough to affect it.
So what about like in the future, like say the population is just like obviously rising? Is there any chance like ever that it could possibly?
Good question. Yep. It could, but it's not physically possible because the amount of people you have to add to the mass of the Earth, you'd have to bury the Earth so deep in people it'd be killing everybody. And all the plants and all our food, so we wouldn't last that long. That's an interesting one. I never heard that one before. Yeah. New mass when what? Oh, great question. Is new matter or mass introduced when a person is born? No.
Yeah, it's just the food that.
It's the food, proteins, and so on that mommy and daddy had in their bodies to make you to start with, and then that mommy had in her body to help you grow. So it's coming from plants and animals and other things that are taken in and add to you. So there is no, this is kind of an interesting thing. There's something called the law of conservation of matter and energy. The amount of matter, now matter and energy can change into each other. That's E equals MC squared. That they can change into each other, but no new matter or energy ever comes into the universe or goes away from the universe, because that would be a miracle. It would violate a law of physics. However, all of the matter and energy came into the universe at the beginning. That is a miracle by definition, and that was created by something outside of nature. So something supernatural did a miracle to bring all the matter and energy into existence. I'll get to that in 1 second. First, you. What it's doing is a cancer cell is stealing other nutrients that your body would use and taking it to itself because it's growing out of control. All cancer is, it's cells that are growing out of control. Your body has natural controls that say, nope, stop. Cancer's like, no. Yeah. Something else. So if you want more atoms in one place, you got to take them from somewhere else. Matter and antimatter. So that's another one of these things that are just right. Matter and antimatter, when they bump into each other, they annihilate each other, turn completely to energy. But at the very beginning of the universe, there was just a slight more amount of one over the other, which is why it didn't all annihilate. That's one of the things they were talking about.
And follow-up question. Do you think, I've always wondered this, do you think Jesus created new matter whenever he made the bread?
Great question. I have no idea. Great, that's a great question. Now, here's the thing. Here's how science operates. Science can explain everything that is, anything you can explain by initial conditions, how it started off, and natural laws is in the little science circle. Science can then talk about it. If there's something outside the science circle, science can't say jack. All science can say is, wow, something's operating outside the circle probably. With Jesus, he could have done it a couple different ways. Could he be using something in nature that is just like so far above us science-wise, we just see it as a miracle? Could be that. Or Jesus has access to outside of nature, supernatural. So he could be just doing something that is beyond nature. And in fact, the entire universe was created from something supernatural. So we already know something outside of science is operating.
Would that make a difference?
Their weight would have to be to the point where they'd all kill themselves with obesity and they'd burst before it could do anything. Yes. Okay, aliens. I'll make this quick, but this is a fun one. This one could take a whole thing in itself. I love alien stories and movies that makes for great B-level science stuff, science fiction. But this is not me talking, it's science and math. Science and math says if you believe in aliens, you're going against the evidence. Because what science and math will tell you is that things have to be so precisely done on this planet Even with the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of other planets, there's not going to be another one like ours. And when they say that, well, life exists here, shouldn't it just exist on all those other ones? Well, you're assuming that life happened here by chance. That's a bad assumption because we see that it's purposeful. But even the ones who believe that life is by chance and nature, they will tell you. Now, scientists, when they're talking to the public, they're going to say one thing. When they're looking at the facts and talking in peer-reviewed literature, they'll say something totally different. I have the studies. I show them in this. What the studies say is there's life nowhere but here. We better get used to it. Now, they're going to try to tell you there's stuff out there because their salaries, their jobs, their articles published and stuff depend on it. And some of them maybe believe it, but they're not believing it based on the evidence. The evidence says there's probably life nowhere else but here. And even if, let's see if I can get to it. Even if, oh, and they're so deceptive with it too. One of the things I just saw a TED talk where the guy said, using the Drake equation, using these 7 parameters, the likelihood that there's 100 other civilizations in our galaxy. My thing would be, are you telling us everything? No, you told us 7 parameters. There's hundreds that you ignored. There's no chance there's life anywhere. In fact, even if every atom in the entire universe was a planet, and even if every second since the beginning of time, every atom in the universe was a planet and had a chance to get life, they still wouldn't get the odds you need to get life. There's no chance, unless there's a God behind it. What's the Bible say about it? Nothing, so I don't know. Could be. Bible says nothing about it. One other thing, space travel is not what they make it look like. SpaceX and NASA make it look really easy. In reality, here's all these scientists saying there's no chance. In reality, here's the problem. You see like the Millennium Falcon, how the stars are going past it, what actually happens is all that light that you see, it gets blue shifted. We talked about how if you're moving towards something, it changes it like a sound. All that light would get blue shifted into radiation. You wouldn't see it, but it would be killing you. Not to mention, you know how they go through, you know how there's dust in space and little fragments and stuff? If you hit a pebble this big, it would cause a nuclear explosion level event, all concentrated at this size on your ship. It would blow your ship to bits. If you wanted, let's say Mandalorian, so just you get a text that says, oh, Mandalorian and Yoda, baby Yoda are in the closest galaxy to us, Andromeda Galaxy. Let's say we just got their message. Well, they're long dead because that message, even if it traveled at the speed of light, was 2.5 million years ago. So there's no way we're seeing Mandalorian and baby Yoda. If they want to travel to us, they better have a whole lot of babies because they're going to have generations for 2.5 million years to get here. If they tried to use warp drive has radiation, would cause radiation inside and in front, it would kill everything. Let's see what other is not happening. Science and math say there's no aliens, there's no visitations. We're not going to see anything. Now, is this as strong as the case for God? No. So if someone did prove aliens, I'd be like, oh wow, but that's it. No, I'd be like, wow. But I wouldn't be as surprised. Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. What 5:30 is when we're done?
So yeah, 2 minutes. We'll need to probably dismiss in a couple minutes just to get them over there.
Okay, I'll get this one. How what?
How do you believe the universe is?
I think it's about, again, this is not thus saith the Lord, this is thus gets with me. I think it's about 14.5 billion.
Wow.
The universe. Now, this is a young Earth older thing. Here's my point on young Earth older. The Bible, you cannot get an age from the Bible. The Earth could be young. I might be wrong. Or the Earth could be old. You cannot get an age from the Bible. Even if they were 7 literal days, you cannot get an age, and I can show it. When God wants us to know something, he makes it clear and redundant. How do you get saved? He makes it clear and redundant. What's the age of the earth? He doesn't say. He doesn't give a care if we know that. So, I think it's what science says, because all the evidence points there. The only people who don't believe it are people in the church. So I think we can talk about it in the church. Outside of the church, though, don't put a stumbling stone in front of other people. Because why do that? You're going to get called to account if you put a stumbling. Why worry about age of the earth if they don't believe in it? Just try to get them saved. Now, could I be wrong? Totally. I've been wrong about a bunch of stuff. But biblically, I can show you, if anyone wants to talk about it, I can show you the Bible doesn't give an age, and I can give you very good reasons to support young earth and old earth from the Bible. Not from science. Science only goes one way, really. But from the Bible, I can show you young earth, old earth. Same thing with Galileo. The church who went after Galileo and Copernicus said that the Bible says the earth is fixed. It doesn't move. And it did look like it said that. That was bad Bible interpretation. That's why I think I'm safe in saying it's older, but I also have to be safe in saying, but I don't get that, I don't know. Literally, it looks like it's talking about 7 days if you look at the ancient Hebrew of it. Not that I'm an expert on, so that's a good argument for it. But do they have to be? There's arguments for both sides. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for your time and everything. You guys were so fun. The kind of question stuff you guys had, top rate.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
That was a really great time. I hope you guys learned a lot. I know I did. I always enjoy this type of thing to learn about and know. So with this, I'm gonna dismiss you guys. If you're in cabin 5, go out. If you're in cabin 5, cabin 6, cabin 1, cabin 2, quickly, 3, 4, 11, 12, 13, and 14.
Yeah, sure. For the same reason they don't think there's more likely